Are you okay? Hello, welcome to this Cabinet meeting of Newcastle Borough Council today. Welcome to councillors in the room, Cabinet members. We've got Trevor Johnson, Portfolio Holder for Environment and Recycling, Jill Heasom for Health and Wellbeing, and we've got Jill, who's our Portfolio Holder for Leisure, Culture and Heritage, and to my right is Deputy Leader Councillor Sweeney, Stephen Sweeney, who is our Finance Portfolio Holder and also for Town Centres, and I'm Leader of the Council, Simon Tagg. Also, we've got our officers joining us today. Also, welcome to people who are viewing this online on YouTube. If you'd like to see the agenda we're working to today, there is a link, I believe, in the comments or in the description section below, which takes you to that to have a look at our agenda today. So moving to that agenda, first item is apologies. We don't have any because all Cabinet members are in attendance. Item 2 is declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest from councillors? Not seeing any. Item 3 is minutes of the previous meeting. They're attached page 5 to 10. Can we agree those as the correct record?
Agreed.
I will sign those in a minute. And then our first item of business is a Wallis Quarry update. I'm going to hand over to Martin, our Chief Executive, in a minute to give an update on where we are based on the report. But report before us is another comprehensive review of what's happened since we last had a Cabinet meeting, detailing such things as the complaint levels, the monitoring equipment, also touching on the abatement notice, which I'm really interested to see what Martin has an update on that for us. And then we'll also talk later about the engagement events that have taken place over the last couple of weeks. But over to Martin for a appraisal of where we are with Wallis Quarry and the gas odour issues.
Okay, thanks, Leader. You'll see in the report that basically there are 3 key areas that are explored: where we are with the abatement notice, where we are with the complaint data, and where we are with the air quality data. In terms of the abatement notice, you'll know from your last meeting that Wallis Quarry Limited appealed the abatement notice that we served, and we now go into the court process. And the first part of that process will be a management hearing, a case management hearing at the Magistrates Court, which will look at how long it's going to take, what witnesses will be required, etc., etc. We did have an initial date listed for the end of September, 28th of September, for a case management hearing. Unfortunately, while our legal team were available, Wallis Quarry Limited's legal team weren't available, so we had to vacate that date. And it's important. This is, if you like, kickstarts the appeal, the actual legal process around the appeal. We've now had another date, which is the 3rd of November, offered as for a case management hearing, which again, as I say, would kickstart this process. We're ready to go with that. The legal team are lined up, and we're just waiting now to hear whether or not Wallis Quarry Limited will be able to be available for that hearing. So, assuming that they are, that will really kickstart the process, and then from that will flow out, if you like, the timetable for the hearing of the appeal of the abatement notice. You'll be aware that one of the implications of the appeal process is it stops the clock on the 5 months that we set out for Wallis Quarry to abate the nuisance. So the clock stopped on that, and ultimately now will fall to the Magistrates Court to set the time frame for that abatement. In terms of the complaint data, that's set out at section 3 in the report, and you will see that we're now up to almost 21,000 complaints that have come into the council about this issue since January. In the last couple of months, August and September, we're seeing the complaint numbers drop, But at 630 complaints for September, this would still be by some margin for the month of September, the most complained about issue that we're dealing with. You'll also see that over time, I think the tendency to complain to the council has shifted towards a tendency to complain to the Environment Agency as the league regulator. So while we had 630 complaints in September, they had 2,300 plus in the same time frame. So they've had just about more or less twice the number of complaints that we've had year to date. So clearly the lived experience of this is not indicating that the problem has gone away. In terms of the air quality monitoring stations, you'll be aware we have jointly between ourselves, the County Council and the Environment Agency, we're funding the 4 big static monitoring stations that are around the site. And one of the critical things that they are analysing is the amount of times that over a 30-minute average, the World Health Organization's annoyance guidance level of 7 micrograms per meter cubed is breached. And I think it's fair to say that in recent months, that has come down, less so at Gallingale than any of the others. Gallingale, throughout this monitoring time, has sat significantly above the other monitoring stations. But if we look at the last available data, 27th of September to the 3rd of October, there were no instances of the odour levels being above the annoyance threshold for at 3 of the sites, and only a small percentage of time at Gallingale. And that's dropped quite significantly from 11% of the time previously. Now, what's important to remember here is these are half-hour averages. So to trigger this, you need to be above that threshold level for half an hour. And so seeing this data tells us that perhaps the emissions from the site may be reducing, but this does not mean that there aren't within that spikes and periods of time when actually there will be significant annoyance to individuals. And it's one of the quirks of this data. Putting up with an odor for half an hour clearly would be very, very annoying. But if you're in your house and you get an odor for 10 minutes and a couple of hours later another 10 minutes, you'd be hard pressed to argue that that wasn't also really annoying. So while it's going the right way, as far as the data is concerned, I don't think we should see ourselves as out of the woods yet. And then finally here, as part of our ongoing surveillance, we have procured 2 Jerome handheld devices, which we are leaving in properties around the area, leaving them typically for a week at a time, so that we can actually get a decent picture of what's happening overnight, see spikes and such like. Two reasons for this. One is to allow us to see the patterns of hydrogen sulfide presence in people's homes, but also if there is an absence of that, to be able to reflect some comfort back to the community that that's the case. We're keen to expand where we can put those properties so that we get a really good sample. And we're also working with whatever Public Health England are now called to sort of work out where best to be putting these so that they can also be using that data for their surveillance of the medical impact of the hydrogen sulfide. So as I say, we're in the legal process, complaints are still high, the data looks like it's starting to go the right way, but we shouldn't read into this data that means the annoyance is gone.
Thank you, Martin. And also weather conditions have a lot to do with that as we approach the winter. But just before we open it up to any comments, just I'll just finish off the report on the engagement sessions that took place. There was an engagement session for councillors to attend, both county councillors and Newcastle Borough councillors representing the area. That took place a couple of weeks ago now. I chaired that. There was representatives from the EA, from Health, from the council, from the county council, and the police were in attendance. That is now available online on the council's YouTube website to have a look back on that. So we're open and transparent. No secret meetings took place. That is now available in its entirety to watch. There's also been 2 engagement sessions at Bradwell Lodge. I've been to both of them. Martin and Nestor, our team from the council, have also been there with other council officers to talk to people about the abatement notice process and the Borough Council's role. But the EA have been there in numbers. I know that Claire Denise, the area coordinator for the EA, has also been there at one of the events. And yesterday evening was the last event, and I was pleased to chat with a number of the Stop the Stink group that came around tea time in numbers, in force, which was good, to ask questions of the EA and other partners. So I think it was a good procedure to go through. And I think the meeting that councillors had, a lot of questions were aired, questions were asked of the police, questions were asked of the EA and the council. So a good process to go through to get to the bottom of some of the things that are going on. And I hope that the EA particularly will take part in them in the future and possibly do more face-to-face as we go through this, because that's really important. The only thing missing was the actual operator taking part in any of these, and that would have really made a difference so that they can be scrutinised by people. But obviously that's their choice not to come along to these, so and not to take part in the group as a whole that have been working together for many months on trying to solve this issue. So opening it up now to questions. First of all, on the abatement notice, obviously really pleased to see that we look as though we've got a date of the 3rd of November, so we can start to progress. As Martin said, it's been on hold because of the appeal. And of course, you did mention the date at the end of September. And of course, the operator at short notice said that they couldn't get a legal brief to represent them during that short notice period. Leave the public to decide on their views on that. But I think now we've got a good run into the 3rd of the 11th, and I would hope that that all parties can be represented. Just a question to Martin or to our legal officer: does the court have any way of enforcing the operator to come to this, seeing as they are under an abatement notice which they've appealed? It's up to them to come and actually in good time to actually hear this and get a result, whether it moves forward or not. So Dan, our legal officer.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I mean, ultimately in these situations, if the court tires of trying to find a date that everyone finds suitable, they will just fix a date. And if Wally's Quarry's legal team is not available on that date, well, they'll have to pull an alternative team together, I think. So ultimately, yes, the court will lose its patience and just fix a date, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you, because this is an important issue affecting a lot of people, and I think the court should deal with it as soon as they possibly can. So that's just my question. Open up to any other questions or comments, Steve?
Yeah, thank you. It's comments really. I was a bit disappointed at the council's meeting that Claire Denise herself wasn't in attendance. I mean, she went to one of the residents consultation meetings, but I thought she could perhaps have come to ours. In the room, yes, in the flesh, so to speak. The other thing that disappointed me really is when I questioned about the smell. The answer I got off the A was, when all this process is done and finished or whatever, if you live near one of these landfills, it will always smell. And it's something you just got to put up with. It won't smell to the degree that it smells now, but their overall target, their ambition, isn't to remove the smell entirely, which I rather hoped it was, but it's not. There is, if you live near a landfill, it will always smell, and I find that a bit depressing, really. That this is something that our residents, including myself, have got to live with there for the rest of our lives. Thank you, Lynn.
Open to other questions, Trevor.
Just on the Posy Shell, do we have any historical information on how, because it appears to be doing a job at the moment, and it's the longevity of it that worries me. Do we have any information on?
It's a sort of medium-term temporary cap. It's not a permanent cap. And to the best of my knowledge, it's expected to last about a year. But obviously that will, in that time, potentially you'll have bits that are covered over. You may have bits that are opened up for other for other tipping, etc. But it is a temporary measure.
Anybody else want to speak or give any comments? Okay, I mean, just to wrap this up, obviously really pleasing that we look as though we're moving towards a date for the council's abatement notice and the appeal against it to be heard. That's moving that process forward. I think also the the things that are happening on site, the posi shell we've just talked about, and the gas wells are going in at the moment. It'd be interesting to see what the result when those works are complete. I think our role really is to continue to monitor, and also I'd say obviously take reports from the public and complaints from the public. And I know that the Stop the Stink group are really urging people to report, even though there might be some reporting fatigue as this has been going. It's really important either to the council or the EA those reports come in. And the Jerome equipment, as Martin mentioned, which we now have 2 units for, we're really keen to get them out into the community and to use some weather data to find out which way the wind is blowing, so we can put them in the relevant properties that are in the path of potentially odours, particularly I think at the weekends, which we still had talking to people last night at the engagement session at Bradwell Lodge, that it was particularly Saturday night was a very bad odour episode from tea time onwards. So these sort of things which we need to ensure we have these monitors in people's properties. And I know the Stop the Stink group are asking some of their supporters and their Facebook members to give allow the council to use their property for the Jerome equipment. It has to be there overnight. It does make a little bit of a noise, I understand, so it'd be in the spare room or something or wherever is seen appropriate by the council officer. But gathering that information is so important as we monitor this going forward, because if the monitoring equipment right around the site is beginning to really tail off, we need to know what the further wider picture is up on the higher ground. And I think it's something we are going to keep on top of. And I think the help of the public, which we've had, really massively from the Stop the Stink group, have really raised this item up. We need now to keep an eye on what's going on the site. The weather is changing. We're going back to that winter weather. And of course, from Christmas time last year until, through till now, we've had, massive stink episodes, and we're heading back to that colder weather. And of course, springtime was really bad when we had the colder weather. So as we get through the autumn towards the winter, we will need to monitor and see whether this work is working, and be there to pursue our abatement notice if it isn't. And I think we always end on the EA. Really, the EA have the powers as the regulator. They have powers to instruct the operator to do various works. They can even suspend the site, work at the site, and do all other sorts of things. And they need to do that to ensure that people don't suffer from these problems any longer than is necessary. But we've got the recommendation before us on this report to ensure that we are kept up to date, and that the work that's going on to reduce the odours associated with Boys College reported to us. We've done that, and I thank Martin for his report, and also thank Nesta, who's our Head Environmental Health Officer, who's working night and day on this, and weekends, to help us to deal with this problem, to deal with people's complaints and issues, and to obviously play our part as a Borough Council in obviously ending this scourge that is affecting the borough and beyond. Can we all agree with the recommendation? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the medium-term financial strategy 22-23 to 26-27. Hand over to Stephen, who's going to introduce this.
Thank you, Leader. This is the report that shows how much the gap is, if you like, that's got to be filled the next budget making session. At the moment, it's £1.596 million is the gap that we've got to find that money. How we do that? Obviously, a huge amount of work's being done at the moment. This process starts months and months ago. We've had the efficiency board where we sat down and we've challenged all the sort of senior managers, the council, what they're spending money on, why they're spending money. Although this is a very tough budget setting period, which it is, I must note that the £5 million that we've had in support from the government to see us over, if you like, the COVID pandemic, has been tremendous, and without it, I haven't known what it was. But it's going to be a tough enough budget setting. But this is very much the position statement where we are at the moment. The future reports will tell people what we're doing about it, as opposed to where we are with it. It'll tell us how we're going to put it right, which I think is probably a lot more interesting in this particular fairly factual paper. Thank you, Lee. That's about it.
Thank you. Appendix A details the gaps and some of the savings, some of the pressures, that will require savings to be found. I think, again, we're seeing inflationary pressures as they're seen right across the economy. So they will affect us moving forward. And also we've, obviously it says there about the national insurance contributions increase, the national and social care levy, but I understand that we are due to have that money given back to us by the government, as all local authorities will do, because obviously we have to pay the employer side of that increase. The employer will pay the employee, will pay the 1.25% extra, but also the employer. And as an employer, that can be quite a hit on our budget, as we've seen there, 153,000. But I understand that, and Sarah is nodding, that indications are at the moment it will be included in our grant from the government, and there is a spending review going on at the moment. So we again wait with bated breath for that. And I understand the Chancellor does want to look at a 3-year spending review, but again we've heard that before, haven't we? Governments of all colours have said they would give us the certainty of a 3-year, and in the end we just had 1 year, and we have a rush into Christmas, don't we, in the last minute. So we expect to do that, but we're getting our house in order with our efficiency board, as Stephen has said. Myself and Stephen are on there. Cabinet members have reported into there with their directors already on proposals and how we're going to bridge this gap. And as Stephen said, it would be a dire situation if we hadn't had the COVID support from the government during that, that period of lockdowns, and when J2 was closed, when car parks weren't bringing any income in, and when people were finding it really difficult to survive out there. And I think now we're moving back to some normality. We've all those things are back up and running now and creating the income. So hopefully, if we stay out of lockdowns and any significant restrictions, we'll be able to maintain that income. But there is, as on Appendix A, a list of pressures for us, and we've also got to find savings. And I believe at next Cabinet, Stephen, we'll be having the first look at the savings proposals. But there is a timetable under 2.16 that shows how we go through the process here. The next thing after this is that we have our draft MTFS and draft savings proposals come to our December meeting. We'll also be running in tandem with that a budget consultation. Then also we will have a scrutiny committee which will look at those MTFS and draft saving proposals. And then in January we have those back to us for approval before we finalise the budget, which will go through to the February council meeting. So at the moment, nothing more for myself or Steve to say on this, but is there any comments from other members on the budget so far on the MTFS? Okay, recommendations are before us as printed. Do we agree those? Thank you. Moving on to our next item, which is the appointment of suppliers to refurbish the health and fitness offer at J2. Over to the portfolio holder, Jill.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, the report refers to the gym at J2 and the outdated tired and equipment that's contained in there. The equipment is now 10 years old. It breaks down frequently and does not provide our customers with the modern fitness offer that they deserve. The equipment is increasingly more difficult to repair, or we can't get the parts to replace it. And I think the costs at the moment are between 15 to 20,000 a year to keep maintaining the equipment. We do receive negative feedback from the customers, and they're more or less telling us that we are falling behind with the times. Our fitness offer isn't as good as elsewhere, and there's better equipment, in other gyms. Trends do change. Toning equipment is popular at the moment, and we need to have an area in the gym where we can provide this. If you actually go and look at the gym, you'll see that it's jam-packed with lots of equipment that a lot of it's not even used anymore. It's just gone behind the times. So the purpose of the report, therefore, is for Cabinet to give the authority to the Executive Director to enter into agreements for the refurbishment of the gym and the equipment. We have a budget of £360,000, and the Cabinet first looked at this report in June this year, and at that time UK Leisure was the preferred and most suitable framework to deliver this project. But at that time we just felt that we needed a few more details and just check a few things. The UK Leisure framework offer has been reviewed and it is still considered the most suitable. No other framework offers the specialist industry knowledge, which combine both the design and refurbishment of the fitness facilities and the supply of the equipment that the council can benefit from. Alternative frameworks have been considered, and the UK Leisure Framework is still considered the most appropriate for this council and will provide the best value for money. I support the recommendation. I'm confident that our officers have carried out all the necessary work and checks to make sure that the UK Leisure Framework is the best option for this council. As I said, it will provide the best value for money. The project has been held up long enough now. The gym's been closed for quite a long time during COVID. I think that we need to get on with it as soon as possible. J2's had its, a series of problems which we inherited. We're now overcoming all of those now and getting these things sorted out. And I think now is the right time to make the improvements to the gym at Jubilee 2. So I hope you support that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jill. Yeah, obviously we've got a report in next on the agenda about the structural survey. And I think what we've got is a centre now that we're beginning to get as we would like it to have been. A lot of work has taken place after a lot of problems with the building. And I think you're quite right, after 10 years or so now, almost. Obviously the equipment needs to be replaced. We've taken an extra look at it, and you as portfolio holder have taken an extra look at it, and we now have the recommendation before us to authorise, as you said, the way forward on that, and the budget is available for the £360,000 for that refurb, so we can move to some new equipment in our fitness offer for J2. So I completely support the recommendation. Over to Steve.
Yeah, I support it as well. I think with gyms, if you don't move with the times, you go backwards really. And I think after 10 years, I'm not a regular user of a gym. I won't amaze people by telling them that. However, I feel that if you don't move with the times, you just waste time doing it really. I think this is money well spent, and I absolutely totally endorse it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, Paul?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I endorse this as well because. As we know, J2's undergone some recent changes. Some have been planned, some haven't been planned. That essentially, through lockdown, we've turned it around in terms of a building that wasn't really delivering that we expected to on the level that we expected to. And now it is delivering. And I'm delighted to note that the recent input from and the confidence shown from people that want to take out memberships has again exceeded our expectations and is buoyant. And I think it's only fair that we maintain the standard that people expect in a modern gym, particularly in the middle of the town. That we make sure that the investment's there to underpin this, and that it continues to be a shining example of what we're capable as a borough council. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Any other comments? No? Okay, so recommendations before us, as Jill has read out. All agreed? Agreed. Excellent, thank you. Right, moving then to item 7, which is the J2 structural survey. We've got a verbal update because I just wanted to be completely as ahead of the game here as much as we can, but we will certainly be having a further report in written detail. But Martin's just going to outline now some of the early indications from that structural survey that we requested, obviously following the many problems we've had with the J2. A number of them been put right, but we just obviously, while we're still in the period where the company that built J2 is still on the hook, so to speak, we wanted to ensure that we did a survey and of any other problems so we could get those fixed before that expires. So over to you, Martin.
Thanks, Leader. We did the survey, or we had an organisation called Baker Mallet do the survey, which is jointly commissioned between ourselves and Morgan Sindall. And they did that work beginning of October. So we haven't yet had the full written report, but their sort of preliminary observations really fall into three areas. One is rainwater handling, which probably won't come as a surprise to members around the table. One is around mechanical and electrical kit in the site, and the other is actually about the overall fabric of the building and structure of the building. In terms of rainwater handling, their preliminary observations are that for some of the gutters, there appears to be insufficient fall leading to pooling of water. And they're, as part of their final report, will also be looking at the overall capacity of the drainage system. So they haven't commented on that as yet, but it will form part of their final report. They've also observed that around the curtilage of the building, we don't have inspection chambers for the rainwater drainage system, so that'll again be something that they will look at and comment on as part of their final report. In terms of the mechanical and electrical setup, there's a couple of issues really around ventilation. One is they reflected that perhaps the humidity on poolside was higher than they would like to see, which may be down to some of the characteristics of the air handling system in that area. And also identified an issue with some of the ventilation in one of the pool chemical stores. And I think more of a comment than necessarily something that we have a view as to whether they're going to make a recommendation on was whether we should actually have a stored system for hot water as opposed to the current system, which is basically taking direct feed rather than a storage system. In terms of the fabric of the building, they identified no issues with the structure of the building, and their comments were really quite positive about how the internal fabric of the building is holding up, how the finishes are holding up, and how the building is actually being maintained by the council. So those were sort of quite positive aspects of their finding. But while they've identified a couple of issues around mechanical and electrical, again, their initial observation is that the initial fit out of that has actually been done to a good standard. So the next part of this is to receive their full report, which of course, they will have taken their initial observations and they'll go back and consider those in detail and look at building standards, etc. And we will get a report from them hopefully by the end of October, and we'll then be in a position to report formally back to Cabinet on any works that need to be done.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Steve.
So everything's all right-ish apart from the rainwater. There's the leakage and everything. Basically, is that what they're saying? That's how I'm interpreting that. Is that, I mean, there's a few minor-ish things, but the main thing is the leaking.
Accepting that we haven't had their report yet.
Yeah.
The findings at this stage are there's some issues around rainwater goods, and there may be some issues around some of the ventilation systems.
Yeah.
But the overall structure and fabric of the building is good.
Yes, I think if I was Morgan, I think I'd want to have a chat with my architect who designed the thing. I think if I was the builders, because the thing's been built right, the stuff's all right apart from the. Right, okay, no, thank you.
Bill.
Thank you, Lydia. Yeah, I just think it's it's really good that we've had the report done. Now we've got a full picture of what needs doing. I'm very pleased to see that there's strong evidence that the council has maintained the building well, and that's a real positive. And I think when we do get the final report, we should just get on with the work and do whatever we need to do to get it done as soon as possible and address the issues. Thank you.
Other comments from Cabinet members? No, I think just echo what Jill has said there. I think it's good to have this survey, or at least the initial report from it, and we'll look into the report in a lot of detail to make sure there are no other issues which will affect the public's enjoyment of the building. I think it's a great facility, always has been, but it's had these nagging problems that have kept raising up, and some that weren't addressed, particularly between 2012 and 2017, particularly. And I think we, as a cabinet, since we've taken over as a cabinet at the end of 2017, have been pushing this. And I say again, as I did at previous cabinet meetings, our chief executive, since he's come and worked at the council, has really concentrated on this process and got us to able us to deal with some of the issues that we inherited, and also now we're ensuring that there's no other things waiting for us to be discovered. We want this building to begin a full health bill of health, even looking for the right word, a good clean bill of health even. And of course there always will be things of maintaining and updating J2 as you go forward, which is generally the case, and the item we had before was one of them, which is to renew the fitness equipment there. So I think we'd rather be doing that than actually dealing with niggling problems from the construction. So really good to have that back. Thank you for that, Martin. We'll move on then to item 8, which is the energy efficiency programmes for Newcastle under Lyme, and Jill is going to introduce us as the portfolio holder. Jill, where Heatham this time.
Thank you, Leader. As you can see, the officers have put together a report and statement of intent that we'll be looking at today, and it's to update on the residential energy efficiency programmes being promoted in the borough. One of the things that have been put forward that I would like to particularly comment on is the funding for Beat the Cold. They're a local independent charity working to reduce the incidences of cold-related illness and fuel poverty, helping households to access funding to improve their homes, looking at the best tariffs. I've worked with Beat the Cold historically in a previous post, and I think they are an excellent resource for the council that we really should be using. They've helped so many households on low incomes, help them to improve their living accommodation, and looking at funding to achieve that. So I would endorse particularly the agreement to investigate ways to fund that, and ask that my fellow cabinet members will approve it.
Thank you, Jill. Yes, completely support this. I think particularly in the times we're entering now with the issues about energy, I mean, we can argue about how we've got to the stage where there's potentially going to be energy shortages, but I think it is an issue which is going to affect families, and particularly those on the lowest incomes and those that need support. So I think this does help us. And I think Beat the Cold is a great initiative really, and needs to be supported. And we're going to be doing that with this report for the residents of our borough. Attached is one of the statement of intents, which will be, I assume it says signed by Chief Executive at the bottom. So I think after this meeting, we can do that. And that's the intent for energy company obligation is approved. So completely supported, but opening it up to any other comments. Anything to say, Steve?
Like Jill says, I've engaged, if you like, with Beat the Cold before now. They had a big project a few years ago in the Laps of dealing with it, weren't they? Of sending flyers out for everybody. So yeah, I absolutely endorse this entirely. Thank you.
Paul.
Thanks, Leader. Yeah, I really welcome this report. And as you said, Beat the Cold is one of the examples that's being used here, particularly in the climate we face now with some families falling into fuel poverty. I mean, they've got a good track record. I can remember when they were putting in boiler systems for people that couldn't afford them, brand new boiler systems. They had loads of them to put in across the county, particularly Newcastle. So this really is warmly welcome, pardon the pun.
Thank you, Paul. And I think even more of this is going to be welcome as we move forward. I mean, I read something yesterday about, the phasing out of gas boilers over the next 10 years or so. That's going to be a massive cost to families because the alternatives are much more expensive, and you need a lot more capacity in your house, in your garden, to have these new air exchange boilers and all sorts of things. And I think it's going to have to be a lot of government grants coming in to sort of ease the path for many families. I don't think it will just be those at the lower end of the income scale. I think it'll be those that are earning quite a bit of money will not be able to find the money to do this transfer if we're going to meet these requirements which we're signing up to. But I think this is a good start, the continuation of Beat the Cold Fund, and completely support it. And cabinet members, I think, Jill, are supporting your recommendation. All agreed? Okay. Right, moving back to the agenda, and we are now doing the item 9, Northgate Revenue and Benefits Cloud Migration. This is seeking support to enter into a contract with Northgate for the provision of hosting of our revenue and benefits service in the cloud. Now, historically, we've had our information such as this hosted in premises used by the council on traditional servers. As we move forward now, obviously the cloud is becoming a more opportune way of holding a lot of our data. Also, if we don't then have to have a facility that backs up a facility if there's a fire or there's a electric outage at our server store, for example, we're in trouble. So to back it up on the cloud is the way to go forward. And I think more and more of our services will move forward, and our data or our email at the council has already been transferred recently to the cloud for storage. And this is a step where it takes some relevant and important service for the council, which is our revs and bends services and applications. That will be a better way of running it. And the report states the case for that, also the financial implications for that, and the benefits of that. And I move the recommendation opens up to any comments. I don't see anybody. So recommendation is the Cabinet approve the cloud migration proposals to safeguard continued service of our revs and benefits applications serving the residents of the borough. All agreed? Thank you. Next is item 10, and this is a similar item, and Stephen's going to introduce this one.
Yeah, thank you. At the moment, our customers have citizens access to a system that looks after the council tax. This is moving on a stage, and it's going to be council tax, and they'll be able to manage their own benefits as well through this system. For the council's one front door approach, this really is exactly what we're talking about. They'll go online and can load money, do it any time of the day that you speak to anybody. There's cost savings to be driven out by this, and it's just a completely sensible, practical approach for this council to take, and I think it fits in entirely with the one front door approach that we're doing. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, thank you. Do you all agree with the recommendation?
Agreed.
Good. Item 11 is air quality update. I've asked officers to bring this report today because I felt it was time we had an update on the air quality issues and relating to the air quality directive. If members will be aware that the borough is affected along the Etruria Road coming up from Bassford Bank as you come up to Victoria Street, and that would have led to will lead to a buzz gate with restrictions at rush hour times. Now, since Cabinet agreed the outline business case with a number of caveats, which we'll go on to in a moment, in December 2020, which seems a long time ago now, doesn't it? We have obviously seen that the City of Stoke have approached the government and gotten permission to model a different version from a buzz gate for the Victoria Road part of the breach in the air quality, and to look at a CAS. I don't think we should give any views on that. That's for them to sort out. But it has meant that timescales have changed, and also I think the actual traffic modelling, in my view, has changed relating to the COVID pandemic and changes in work patterns, etc. So ultimately, we want to keep this under review, but just to clarify what Cabinet decided in December 2020 is that we would support the outline business case, but we'd also ask for the low emission vehicles to be allowed through the buzz gate, and also that we actually ask for the government to fund a review and ask our MP to lobby on our behalf of the actual need for the buzz gate restriction on the back of the results of COVID, and I believe the changes to traffic patterns. So it's just an update on that, bringing that forward, that we haven't forgot about that, and we're asking our officers through the air quality unit to progress that with the government. And I think, as the report says, there's a case and for ultra low emissions cars to go through. That's the hybrid and electric cars to go through, and that can be modelled very easily. And also emergency vehicles, which weren't modelled in the original outline business case. And of course, we know that Victoria Street down to the turn for Bassford is a route for ambulances, particularly coming to and from the accident unit and the hospital. So it's right that we put those in there. So what we need to do is seek an agreement from JACU, which is the government office, looking at modelling the exemption of the low emissions vehicles. And as detailed in the report, that would be the vehicles of a certain age and of a certain environmental rating, but would include a lot of cars much older than would have been if they were hybrid or electric ones, which are more modern, and all cars are moving in that direction. And then also we're asking our officers to look at the post-COVID vehicle patterns on the A53, which is the Etruria Road, to see if that has had an effect that would mean that the buzz gate may no longer be needed, or it may be able to accommodate the exemptions we'd like to see for ultra low emissions cars. And then, of course, importantly, we need to still have the support of our local MPs to lobby for this. Our local MP, Aaron Ball, has taken the cause up for us and has been lobbying the government over this. I would also call on Joe Gideon, who's the Stoke Central MP, which actually the actual breach associated with the A53 is actually within the Stoke boundary, so is within her constituency. And I know that there are a number of residents and also councillors on the Stoke side of the board that have got real concerns about the buzz gate, and as planned, where it would only allow buses and taxis through. So we need to make a change, I think, and we need, of course, to stay within the keeping the emissions down to an acceptable level, as we've been asked to by the government. But I believe, the time has passed now since we arrayed that original decision. I think we need to move forward with trying to get the low emissions vehicles exempt, and also to ensure, obviously, that the modelling is done for that, and also the modelling is done to see if the COVID vehicle patterns have resulted in a change. And also that obviously there's going to be public consultation engagement over the autumn to do with this. It will be more to do with the changes to these Stoke Victoria Road CAS proposals. But I think it needs to be clear, this Cabinet's position as we go into that consultation period, that we are trying to get this change. We don't, anybody that's watched or has viewed Cabinet meetings over the last couple of years will see that we have had many serious concerns about this, the effects on our businesses and access to our town centre of, removing access through that road during the rush hour periods because of the buzz gate. And if we can allow as many vehicles through as possible, that will have the least effect. And also the effect on Basford and Maybank, and the possible displacement of traffic during those periods onto Grange Lane through Wolstanton and Maybank past two schools, two primary schools, is an issue we need to address and try and mitigate. So the report's before us. One last thing is the when we did make the decision in December, we had a timescale for which the buzz gate will be in position for. Obviously, because of the Stoke moving the goalposts, so to speak, and getting permission to do that, their timescales have now been pushed back. So it has always been said by the government that the buzz gate would be, both buzz gates, if there was one also on Victoria Road, would be in place for the same amount of time. Well, now because Stoke have changed the goalposts, call them that, the CAS would be in place longer on Victoria Road. And at the moment, that would mean the buzz gate would be in position for just the same period when it was no longer required, because compliance is met pretty quickly on the buzz gate on Etruria Road. So I wrote to the Minister a few weeks ago now to ask that consideration be given for the buzz gate to be removed, whatever type of buzz gate it is, whether it allows cars through ultra low or low emissions, that be allowed to be removed as soon as is applicable, and not to be hanging around when there's no need for it, to be in tandem with the Stoke CAS plans. I haven't received anything from the government back at the moment. I believe there's been a ministerial change, thankfully. I won't say any more about that. And hopefully the new minister will take that up and get a response back to us, and hopefully agree that we should be able to remove any buzz gate at the appropriate time as soon as the compliance is met, and not require it to be there longer than it needs to be. So that's the update of this report. I will bring in comments now. First, bring in Trevor Johnson.
Putting me in a slightly embarrassing situation, but no, don't worry about it. I do actually agree with you, Simon. It is going to be a solution. I'm not so sure that we will get their quality down as fast as we hope. That's my worry about it. But generally, I fully endorse what you're saying.
Paul.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I welcome this report. I welcome the update. I also agree with you on this point. I think we need to do the right thing for the residents and users of Newcastle, not for anybody else. And I think this this indicates that that's where we firmly want to be. Thank you.
Well, Steve.
I think the one point you make as a very valid point is that the border does go up the centre of the road, and the cars chugging away from the D road are actually in Stoke. So it's not just Newcastle's problems; it's Stoke's problems as well. So it's a Stoke and Newcastle issue, and the county council overlooking. So I think all three councils. The idea somehow it was just Newcastle to sort out. Well, it's not. I think it's a tri-county, what's the word, council problem, and I think we should bear that in mind. And involving Joe Gideon, who is the MP for that side of the road, is a wise move. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? No. Okay. So recommendations before us there, and I think just the point that we need to keep lobbying on this. I think to get where we want to go on this, we're not trying to avoid dealing with this problem. We just want it to be dealt with sensibly. And I think also that the problems which the buzzgate will cause in its present form will have an effect on our residents in other areas. And, we're not trying to palm this off onto Stoke, and I hope that they aren't trying to palm this off onto us. And with that in mind, I wrote to the leader of the City Council, I wrote to the leader of the County Council and copied in relevant MPs and portfolio holders to restate this position, which is in this report, and also to pen this report. The Newcastle's position is quite clear when we agreed to move forward on the outline business case in December, that we had those caveats that we wanted low emissions cars to go through if there needed to be a buzzgate, but we wanted the review of the necessity of a buzzgate because of the changes to traffic patterns because of COVID, and we want to assess those. If they come back to show that there is still a need for this buzzgate, then we will be campaigning hard to allow the low emissions vehicles through. So recommendations before us, can we all agree? Thank you for that. Thank you for officers to bringing that report at short notice so we could state that position today. Item 12 is the forward plan. We've got a copy of that before us. As per usual, just go through page by page. Items that are coming up. We've got the October meeting today. We've also got a November meeting where we've got one item at the moment, but we probably will be bringing a Wallis Quarry update on the back of what's happening there. And then also we have a December meeting where we begin to get our teeth into the budget again, and then we have a raft of budget meeting issues to come in January as we build towards the February council meeting to set the budget. Ask cabinet members if there's any items that should be on there that aren't on there that they know of, or do we have a complete picture for the moment? No. Okay, so can we all agree the forward plan? That brings us to item 13, urgent business. I don't have any. Item 14 is the closure of exempt information. I don't have any confidential items on this agenda, so no need to do that. I haven't had any indications from fellow councillors that they wish to speak, or any from members of the public, any questions. So that concludes our agenda today. Thank you for attending, and thank you to the 10 people viewing on YouTube. Thank you.